Action. Welcome to another incredible episode of the Action Podcast. Today, we're on episode 96, and we have a few films on slate. We have The First Omen, which is a prequel to The Omen.
The Omen,
right? 1970 something with Gregory Peck. Then we have Monkey Man, which stars and directed by Dev Patel and produced by Jordan Peele.
Right.
Then we have one that's been out for a little bit, but Pete's finally seen it, so now we're because we wanted to hear his opinion. So Knox Goes Away, that's directed and starred by Michael Keaton.
Right.
And then lastly on Netflix, we have the movie Scoop, which details the BBC interview of Prince Andrew after the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. So
right.
With that, Pete, let's get into First Omen. First, before we get into it, did you see the original one?
No, I'm completely up to date on all of the Omens. Like, I've seen them throughout the years. It's not even something that I had to go and revisit. Like, I know the movies. Like,
yeah, so you saw it though. You saw it.
Yes.
Oh, okay. You
But
didn't.
there's been multiple Omen movies, right?
Yeah. I believe there's 5, right? 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, there's a big franchise. I've seen 0 of them. I have, after I watched this one, went back to go see the first one. So I've something. I didn't finish it, but I've seen some of it. So Omen, we'll get in your opinion shortly. Let me just give you a couple of facts here. 6.9 right now on IMDb, which is very good. And then money-wise, 65 Metascore, which is pretty solid especially for a movie like this. And then money-wise, the budget was 30 and worldwide it made just under 18 million. So little still to go for this one to be profitable. Kind of surprised by that number, to be honest. I thought it would be higher. What won the box office this week, you know?
It had to have been Monkey Man.
No, it's Godzilla. Godzilla pulled in 30.
I don't understand people.
Monkey Man made 10. Ghostbusters still a solid 9. And The First Omen 8.4.
Yeah. I can understand Ghostbusters because that's cool.
Yeah.
But either way, I mean, First Omen. Okay, this was a really bizarre weekend because you got 2 big movies that came at you, and they gave you trailers that gave you an impression of what these 2 movies are supposed to be. And I'm talking about The First Omen, and I'm talking about Monkey Man. If you saw these trailers coming into this weekend, you were excited about Monkey Man because of its John Wick-esque, vibe. And then you were excited about The First Omen because the trailer of this movie was absolutely terrifying. I don't think I've ever seen a trailer that freaked me out more than this film ever. However, when I watched this movie, this was the Immaculate with a bigger budget. There was nothing frightening about this movie. There was nothing as disturbing and wake you up in the middle of the night screaming like the trailer gave me when I watched this film. I just didn't. I just wasn't there with this movie. I watched it and I was in there and I was waiting to lose everything into my underpants, and it never happened one time. I even watched it at night, which I never do with sort of horror thriller movies.
Yeah.
This movie is not scary. This movie is fine. I mean, it's fine. It tells a story, but Immaculate just came out.
I think that's where I think the biggest problem that this movie has is that fact is Immaculate literally came out a week ago.
No, I disagree. I disagree because even if Immaculate came out on the same day, if this movie was done in the manner in which the trailer was portraying it to be, this movie would have crushed even Godzilla this weekend because the trailer was frightening. It was absolutely frightening. And this movie was everything but.
Yeah, I think it was a good trailer for sure. I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was really good. I think I think this movie was never really trying to be that, which I think is the disconnect.
Then
Uh,
don't make a trailer to
well,
tell you
I
otherwise.
just said that. I just said that. Let me finish. I think that's where the disconnect. It's like almost like marketing went a little too overboard with it because this movie was never like even watching the First Omen. The First Omen isn't like The Exorcist. They're two different movies. Now it's more it is more story oriented. It's more creepy than scary. By the way, I was fine with that. I personally had again, I really enjoyed this movie. I saw it in IMAX and it was awesome. And there's definitely some moments where I was like, but I agree with you overall though. I'm not walking out of it like I'm not scared.
No,
And
I'm not going home and I'm going, I can't, I have to stay awake all night because I'm worried there's something in the shadows right now. But that's the difference between the originals versus like these remakes.
the original's not scary at all either though.
It's not scary to you now because you just saw it now. But if you were in the 70s and you saw the first Omen, you would have been absolutely terrified in the same way that you would have been terrified if you watched like The Shining or if you would have watched the original Friday the 13th or Halloween. Like there's a reason why those movies
Those
are
are different
iconic
films.
now because you didn't see that kind of stuff back in those.
I totally get that. I totally get that.
Okay.
My point is,
But if
even
you're going to
watching,
remake a movie like this and do a prequel to a movie that is so horrific and horrifying and thought like fucking up your brain, you can't put out a movie like this. This just doesn't even come close to what that legacy should have been. This was a miss, an absolute miss.
well, obviously, I think you're in the minority
I
because
don't think so.
it's people will give it higher ratings. Like I
Mm,
said, I think you're
crazy.
fixed on the scary aspect. This was a good film. Like I like this film better than Immaculate
No, it's
because
the same
be-
film.
they're very similar films for sure. I thought this was just a better executed film in terms of it's just a better story, I thought, and the characters
Not really.
were a little more interesting. Um,
Can agree to disagree, but no, I don't feel like the story was better than Immaculate, and I don't feel the story did the legacy of the Omen justice. I mean, this is a from the 70s until now, what is that, like 50 years? You tell me a 50-year legacy of a property, and this is what you put out? Come on.
again, I think more people agree with me than agree with you. It's got a six
Well,
nine, and
well,
even
people are still
Metascore.
going and seeing Godzilla. So yeah, who are we up against in terms of popular vote?
Well,
Right.
again, I think that's when you're talking about why this movie will ultimately fail is has zero to do with the movie itself. It's going to do with when it got released, 100%, because this movie should not have been released now. This movie should have been released later and not close to Godzilla. See, Immaculate was smart enough that it get released before Godzilla. And it
Right.
doesn't matter whether or not we think Godzilla is a good movie or not, people are seeing it. And that's poor judgment on the distribution side because they basically cockblocked their movie and Godzilla's going to steal all their money. And I mean, that's a
Right.
pretty low budget, but like I said, overall, I thought it was entertaining. I thought it worked. I thought it worked as long as you don't expect it to be again frightening because it's not that kind of a movie. This is more.
But you can't go into this movie with like, oh, it can't be anything in resemblance to an original
I
of the
never saw the
same
original.
IP. But I mean, but that's the point. The point of like re-releasing a movie like this and calling it The First Omen, you're basically leading into one of the more horrific movies that our society has seen.
And I thought it did a
And
good job of that because I
it,
when I watched the
it
beginning and I'm watching
didn't.
this one, I'm like, oh, okay, I see what's happened now. It worked.
Okay. All right. It did do it. Paul, I'm telling you, it didn't do it. You can hold on to that forever.
But everybody
This
agrees
movie,
with me and not you.
this movie did not do justice to the original Omen movie. If I'm going to take this movie and lead into the original Omen movie, this movie did not do anything of the sort. Sorry. I comment below. Tell me I'm a maniac, but
Read,
this movie didn't even come close
read
to
the
the
other reviews,
original
Pete.
film.
Everyone else is agreeing with me.
All right.
All right, well, moving on. Uh,
Yeah.
we've got Monkey Man, and this is written and directed by Dev Patel. And
Yeah.
I was listening to another podcast, and there's a lot of background to this movie. This movie was probably a lot longer than the theatrical release that what it was.
Hmm.
And it wasn't, it was originally supposed to be a streaming movie, and then ultimately Universal bought it and then attached Jordan Peele to it, and Jordan Peele kind of took it
Yeah.
over and help mold it into a theatrical film.
But didn't Jordan Peele see it and want to attach himself to it? And
That I
so
don't know.
you
I
just
don't.
said, I think it's reversed. I think Jordan Peele got involved and said, no, 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 no. You need to put this out theatrically. I think Jordan Peele has a massive impact on how this movie has been widely distributed.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying the exact words. I don't know 100% how it all went down. I just know it was supposed to be streaming, and then Jordan Peele took over, or Universal bought it and then assigned Jordan Peele to it. But I don't know if he was the one that said Universal buy this. I don't know that little
I
detail.
don't think that's true, but I think Jordan Peele was the guy that pushed it and said, look, this is a theatrical film. You got to go.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't have that.
And I would never go against Jordan Peele because that dude is gold.
Yeah, he's been making great stuff. And so you can definitely see with this film, the trailer kind of made it seem like this is like a, for lack of better words, an Indian John Wick, right? And while I also think that is a little misleading, I still think this movie stands on its own. I think this there is a good core to this movie in terms of the background of the
Right.
character, his
Right.
needs, and then his growth and journey. And I think overall, I thought this movie worked. There are some parts where I think it is a little confusing. You can tell it just kind of gets chopped up a bit, but I thought overall it still worked. I don't even know if the longer version is necessary. But
What else
overall,
do
I was
you say?
entertained by this movie, and I think that's the most important thing. Like, did you enjoy the 2 hours? And I thought everything worked. And it's not a perfect film. It's got some clunkiness to it, but I loved everything within. I thought I enjoyed it.
No, I absolutely agree. Dev Patel, I mean, there's a reason why this movie got released and he made this film. I thought that he did a brilliant job um with this film. Directing it, I don't know if he's directed anything. Forgive me, I haven't seen his IMDb. I don't know if he's directed stuff before. However, again, like I said at the onset of this podcast, like there's two movies this week, which was, First Omen and Monkey Band, where the trailers just absolutely did an injustice to the films that you're about to watch. However, in the case of Monkey Man, you still walk away from this movie thinking about how amazing it was done. Um, you could debate whether there was too much handheld and all that, whatever. But the story and the premise and the action and Dev Patel's character and the villains themselves were amazing. This was a great movie. However, this movie is very bookend, right? Like all the action that you see in the trailers at the beginning and at the end, that's where the action is. And then the middle stuff is where, you're growing and it's very much like a Star Wars where there's got to be some training involved and
Let's say like Rocky, yeah.
yeah, like a Rocky. However, this is a really well done movie, and I don't know how you extend this out because he accomplishes his goal. So, I'm not really sure how you extend this character, although you could make Monkey Man
I, I would
in.
assume, yeah, I would assume he takes on more of India and he becomes more of like a cultural revolution, almost like Gandhi kind of was, where it wasn't just a very localized thing. He had a bigger purpose, and obviously his character does have a bigger purpose in this, and they talk about that. Um,
But despite the trailers, this is a fantastic movie. It's action packed. It you go along to the journey
Yeah.
as the characters going through it. I thought the performances were amazing. I know that a lot of people don't like Indian films because sometimes they could be very choreographed and out there, but this is a solid, like,
This is an American film.
this
I
is
don't
an
want It's an
American,
American film about an Indian character, and I think
but I don't mean that in a disparaging way
no,
at
no,
all.
no, no. That's just a preference because, like you're saying, like people love Bollywood films. This is not a
Oh,
Bollywood film. This is an American film that
billion
is,
dollar industry.
yeah, this is an American film that is about an Indian character,
If
and
this was his debut, knocked it out of the park.
yeah,
100%.
for sure. And then I love just kind of learning some of the different aspects of the Indian culture as well because you do read things and see some things, but I definitely felt this was a very all-inclusive kind of look, and that helped you with the character because
Right.
because some Indians live very well. It's a very like you know
But
uh
that's a very interesting.
disparity.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I mean, because like if we were supposed to base what we think living in India is like
Yeah,
on this movie, it's like Jesus, like where would I be in the pecking order of that world? And man, if I had to do what he had to do, there's no way. There's
yeah.
no way I could survive in India. And it just talks about how hardcore it is. You know what I mean? And
And
you
it
you
didn't even really go hardcore into the slums too. I mean, there's some scenes in it, but it's not as hardcore. Like I've seen some stuff with the
I
slums.
love that character aspect of him where he's he has a goal in mind. He has an ultimate revenge goal, and he positions himself to continuously climb a very specific ladder in
Yeah.
order to achieve that goal. Brilliantly written. I thought the performances were amazing. The action is fantastic. Um, yeah, I just don't get fooled by the trailer because this is a fantastic movie. Don't go into it thinking you're going to watch John Wick because it's not John Wick. But
No.
the brilliant movie by itself, and Patel does a phenomenal job in front and behind the camera. This is a must see.
I think the comp for this would be the original Rocky, where
Mm.
it's like you have some boxing in the beginning, you have some boxing at the end, but in the middle, it's really about the journey of
What a journey, right?
this guy becoming a boxer, right? Or in his case, becoming, this warrior
Right.
character. But again, it's not like John Wick where it's like you hop from one fight to the next fight to the next fight to the next fight, and it's like you're
It-
saying, almost video game. Like it's not like
yeah,
that.
John, exactly. John Wick is a video game. This is not a video game. This is an amazing story. So
Yeah,
well
it's
done.
kind of like the first John Wick, but again, a little less action.
Right.
But Rocky, I think, is a really good comp because
Great comp.
if you go into Rocky thinking like I'm just gonna see a ton of boxing, it's like, yeah, you're gonna see one fight and a little
No, they're
you're gonna see one little fight in the beginning and one fight at the end, and that's pretty much
going to see an almost miscarriage. You're going to see
yeah.
it's all
No,
kinds of
not in
stuff.
the first one. There's no
Oh
miscarriages.
no, that's the second one. All right, all right. Sorry.
Yeah, spoiler alert on
Yeah.
the Rock. All right, next we have Knox Goes Away. I'm gonna let you go first, Pete, just because I saw it a few weeks
Yeah,
back.
you saw it a while ago. So, directed by Michael Keaton, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Knox Goes Away. Like I've been waiting for this movie for a while. It was one of those movies that I think you introduced me to in terms of like early on my radar. Like, oh my gosh, Michael Keaton, he's like a killer, an assassin, whatever his role is. And he just got diagnosed with some sort of degenerative mind brain kind of thing. And so there's reconciliation that needs to happen on every level of his life. And Michael Keaton's performance in this movie is never going to be recognized, although it was absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
Um, I thought his performances were fantastic. I thought what he did behind the camera, who knows if like nobody would be like, oh, that's a Michael Keaton directing style. You know what I mean? Like nobody would ever say that. However, what he did with this film is that he brought you into this world and he kept you inside of this person who is literally not losing his mind like going crazy, but there's a degeneration. And right when you're in the middle of something that is of value in this film, there's immediately that something kind of happens in the film where you're like, oh my God. So you're in this head of this main character who's going through a form of dementia. But he's a killer and oh my God. And I'm not going to go into it because what he does, you think, oh my God, what an asshole. But then he's not, and he's fantastic. Great movie. Go see this movie. It was one of my favorite movies I've seen so far this year. Knox Goes Away. And Al
Yeah,
Pacino's in it. Al
yeah,
Pacino's in it, but he's not over the top like, ooh ha, Al Pacino. He's so
yeah.
subdued. He doesn't even look like Al Pacino in a
Well,
way.
he's old. He's old now. He's in his 80s, I think.
I know he's old, but I mean, there's still Al Pacino.
Yeah.
But I
Uh,
love seeing him, and this is a great movie. Go see this movie. It's fantastic.
yeah, yeah. I really liked ultimately I thought this was a good script. And I
Yeah.
think obviously it's a good script with great characters. I think Michael Keaton did a decent job directing it. I think he kind of chose to do, I'm just going to kind of have everything kind of play in front of me. It's not a fancily directed film, but I think it works because it just allows what you need to happen. It doesn't get in the way.
But you
And
have to acknowledge that in a way, right? Like
yeah, it
he's
works.
not looking to do something against the story itself. He's just trying to tell a story. And maybe in the future, I'll direct something that's more avant-garde,
Not
right?
like it's not like Michael Bay, where the
Right.
camera's zooming everywhere. But this obviously those are different films as well. This is a
Sure.
this is a character piece with a good story that
Fantastic.
really gets kind of intriguing right away, and you're just like, interesting premise, and then you just go on this journey. And yeah, we won't spoiler. I forget
Yeah.
what spoiler, what's not, but
The
we'll just
journey is amazing.
yeah,
It's a good journey.
yeah. Again, this I think the script is really well written, and I think that's what makes it worse, along with these great actors that are now then performing this. So
And what's the son's name? James Marsden?
James Marsden, yeah,
He is amazing because you see,
he's Cyclops.
dude, he's like, I'm the biggest pussy in the world into I'm the most badass guy and you can't read shit. Like,
Yeah,
what a range in this role for him. I thought that he did a phenomenal job in this movie as well.
yeah. I mean, that's really where the movie is. I mean, don't get caught up by Al Pacino's name. Al Pacino
No,
is definitely a side character. The main actors are Michael Keaton and James Marsden. It's about their relationship. He's the
right.
son, Michael Keaton, and so again, I don't want to
God,
spoil anything
I'm
because
gonna watch it again because I watched it. And I'm like, oh my God, this movie's so good.
yeah, I can't wait for it to come out on streaming. I'm looking forward to it. All right. And lastly, today we have Scoop. I didn't hear anything about this movie. I was literally just trying to look for something to watch on Monday, and then it
Yeah,
was like, oh, this looks new. And I did all the research, like, oh, this is brand new. And so Scoop stars Billy Piper,
Gillian
and
Anderson from X-Files fame.
Gillian Anderson. And this movie is about the BBC network trying to get this interview of Prince Andrew during the whole Epstein stuff. And so the I'm gonna say some films. I'm not saying this film is on those levels, but this is like Spotlight or what was that last
He
one?
said,
She Said, yeah, that's the one I was thinking of. On where you're kind of in this investigative journey, and you obviously know the outcome, but
right.
you don't know how they get there and what kind of unfolds in order to get there. And it's I thought it's an interesting film because you know with Epstein, we all know everything now. We know all the details now. But I thought what this film did that I think was the difference between this being good and bad was the setup of the BBC and the interactions between the characters within the BBC, because there's real stakes on the line in this. And I don't think this is a perfect film by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think this movie is as good as those two movies that we just said, but I I did enjoy their character interactions, and I thought the stakes were high on their part. And I think it's an important part, again, as a reminder for people that don't understand journalism, is that's the biggest thing that journalism deals with today, and even going to moving forward, is this competition in the business versus the truth. And that's what a lot of networks struggle with. And because you, at the end of the day, you need to monetize this. And the BBC at the time was really struggling. And so, you're getting layoffs and all this good stuff. And then at the same time, you have a story, and then it's like, don't go pursue that story, you're not going to make money. We need to focus on this. This is how we're going to stay afloat. So you got people focused on their livelihood. You got one person focused on this angle, and then just this interaction. And I thought that part was definitely the best aspect of the film. Um,
Yeah, I think the unsung hero of this movie, and I don't know her name, forgive me, but the woman with the blonde hair who initiates the conversations between the
Billy
royal
Piper. That's
palace.
Billy Piper.
That's Billie Piper.
Yeah,
Okay,
Sam. Her name is
she's
Sam. That's who she. That character is the one that wrote the book.
okay. So
She's the
her
producer.
character is quite subdued in this presentation in this film. However, she's clearly the catalyst, and she's clearly the main cog in this wheel to tell this story. And I thought that her minimalism was quite significant and more powerful because they threw in the kid and they threw in the mom and they threw in
Yeah.
those couple of scenes where it really brought her back into is this really important to them or is it important to you? And what the hell are you going to do about it? Right? Like it
Yeah.
really took an angle of, are you going to take ownership of your own life and what your path is, or are you going to let other people dictate it? Like there's a very specific, powerful message within this sort of documentary almost. But this
Docudrama.
movie,
Docudrama.
docudrama, but this movie is about performance-driven accomplishments. I think the guy that played Prince William, I thought was
Andrew.
absolutely
Andrew.
phenomenal. Prince Andrew, whatever, not Prince William. Jesus, don't sue me, don't kill me. Thank you, Paul. I thought Gillian Anderson character was amazing. I thought even the main producer within the BBC, I thought like her very small role was quite significant because you just felt the weight behind her because if you've been in a professional environment, you know that person. However, her heart was in a good place. You know that she wanted something to be amazing. This is um a really well done movie. Yeah, I don't know why it didn't get much more press, but I almost feel like it's because we've kind of seen it before, and
Well, it's not
there's nothing that kind of
not
stood out that made it unique necessarily.
I think the end story isn't that, like, we didn't learn anything really new.
Right.
So
It's
that,
about performance.
right, but it doesn't mean it's not good. That's
Oh, it's real good.
that's where I think it holds back from like
I
Spotlight.
love these kind of movies.
Yeah, same here. Same here.
Anything investigative journalist, like I'm on board with any of these kinds of movies, and I enjoyed every moment of this movie.
And the negotiations aspect of it, I thought was also interesting in this. Like I
Yeah.
said, overall, I enjoyed this movie. I think it's just limited by its. This was not the bond. Now, if this was like about Epstein, I think this has more like weight. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because I think there's more things to discover that we don't know yet. Like, I don't know if you just saw that Quiet on the Set with the Nickelodeon.
Yeah, I finished that and I'm on the new cast revisits episode, which I don't really care about because I've already seen the documentary.
Yeah.
It's just really well done and frightening and horrific. And my kids are never going into show business ever.
But that my point is, like, that one has like you're learning stuff in that film, right? Now it's a documentary, so that's kind of the point of documentary sometimes. But if there was something like that we learned that was kind of previously unknown, or like we just learned more about, I think that would have really elevated the film. But because it just doesn't have it, that's not what the story is. I think that's the only thing, like I said, that holds it back from being this, like All the President's Men and that level of investigative journalism. So,
Right.
all right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Next week we have Civil War. That's the probably the major release. Looking for
That's
everyone's looking.
A24, the biggest budget that A24 has ever had on a film. I really hope this is good because A24 is such a unique company. Like they only
Yeah.
put out like the best stuff. And this being their biggest budgeted movie, I hope that the people who are in charge of their story are the same people that have been in charge of their franchise so far because
Yeah.
A24 is like top notch.
Yeah, they've been doing well. Then we have The Arcadian, which stars Nicolas Cage. I don't know what that's about, but
Dude.
yeah, looking forward to that one. And then lastly, we have Sasquatch Sunset, which is kind of a comedy about Sasquatches with Jesse Eisenberg. So that one looked, I saw the trailer, that one looked pretty good. So I'm actually kind of looking forward to that one as well. There's a few other movies. We're not going to name their names just because we don't want to be on the hook for seeing them. But, we'll do our best.
Several others.
And then, yeah, just please make sure you like, share, subscribe. Make sure you check out our other episodes. We released Ghostbusters, on the original Ghostbusters. Make sure you check that one out. And then we also have a movie news new episode coming out, as well as a Raising the Sun for Paul's old ass movie classic. So tune in all that stuff. Thank you guys for your support and love. We appreciate you. And with that, Pete, that is a cut. Thanks, guys.